Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Baseball Strong. Today I'm really excited to have a good friend, great baseball player, great dad, a guy that I admired so much during the time that we worked together. I want to welcome my friend Michael Young. Michael.
What's up, brother?
Hey man, good to have you.
Good to have you too, man. I mean, great to see you. Great to be around you as always. Anytime you and I get a chance to catch up, it's always a good thing for me.
Yeah, no, man, it's awesome. It's awesome to have relationships beyond the game, man. It's because this game is short lived for a lot of us, but the relationships are long lasting. So, I mean, it's always good to have. It's always good to talk to you. Get to just catch up and talk family, talk life, man. It's always been great to be around you. So, um, you know, it goes without saying. Everybody knows the kind of baseball player you were. In my opinion, you were one of the most respected guys during your time as a player. But the thing for me that I always respected about you is how professional you were, how professional you were about everything, the way you went about your work, and so one of the ideas that I've had or I'm having with this Baseball Strong program is to educate parents, educate high school athletes what it takes to be a pro. And that doesn't mean that you're going to make it to the big leagues, but you could be a pro dad, you can be a pro teammate, you can be a pro in a lot of things. And being a pro is not about results, it's about the way you carry yourself. When you enter the room, do people respect you? And you're one of those guys that you weren't heard, but you were felt. I always felt like you were that guy that, like, I don't hear Michael talking about this or yelling over here, but everybody knew that your presence was felt, and people knew it. So that's one of the things that I want to get out of this
Thank you.
podcast, share it with the people listening. Is just first off, is just how professional you were, and so I just want to thank you for our time together. It taught me a lot, and I will say that there are very few baseball conversations that I have that I don't have a Michael Young, Ian Kinsler, Adrian Beltre quote or story about how to play the game. So that just want to say that,
Thanks,
Michael. Thank you, bro.
Thanks, Hosey. Again, I feel the same way. We spent a lot of time in Texas, a lot of off seasons, a lot of during the season. You know, I appreciate the kind words, but there were moments too where, dude, I was talking to you. You're like, Mike, man, we got to get a lift in, and I tell you, man, go, Hosey, I'm gassed. Like, and I can go to you and be honest with you. Then we can, like, you can come back and tell me, all right, listen, maybe today's workout, we're not going to do, we're not going to squat 400 pounds, but we're going to, really, really kind of try and activate something so tomorrow you'll feel better. So there was always, that's when I knew I had a good coach and it was someone who I could really trust. I can be honest with, I can tell you if I was feeling tip top and we're going to push it today. And I can tell you when I need a little bit of a break. So I always appreciated that about you. Totally valued our time together. I know it made me a much better player.
Thank you, thank you. So um, I don't want to talk about your career as a player. I want to talk about Michael Young, the kid. Take me back to when you were a little kid and you were playing sports and you're kicking the can around the neighborhood. You know,
Yeah.
take me back to some of those moments where you started to like the game, what things you noticed about yourself that were good. What kind of prompted you, like, you know what, I really like baseball, that kind of stuff. Take me back a little bit.
Yeah, so I grew up in Covina, California, little spot, East LA County. Started playing baseball when I was about four, but I started playing all sports when I was about four. And the one place that I have always said where I got really, really lucky was that I loved the game. I mean, I can't remember ever playing baseball and not just absolutely loving what I'm doing. And that to me was a gift. I didn't earn that. I didn't work for it. I just had it. And I got very, very lucky there. But yeah, I mean, I started loving baseball right away. Played soccer, played basketball, played football, played everything. Loved different sports, but easily baseball was my first love. That's all everything else came back to me. Yeah. It wasn't until I was about 14 where I started playing baseball a little more than just the spring and the summer. Started playing year-round baseball, right around 14, 15 years old. Would play in the fall, play in the winter. Growing up in Southern California, you can play at all times. It's not too hot in the summer. It's not too cold in the winter. So I was able to do that, and I started kind of really seeing some, I don't know, sort of breakthroughs when I was about 16 years old. Started getting a little bit, notices from colleges and then from pro scouts, and kind of felt that even though it was always kind of my dream to play in the big leagues, I kind of started to really see it sort of, the light was at the end of the tunnel, I guess, and I can kind of see it in front of me a little bit. So that was kind of it. Growing up, I had two very supportive parents. My dad was a construction worker. My mom was a, elementary school secretary. So very much a, middle class background with two supportive parents who, knew what I wanted to do and supported me and invested heavily in with their time in helping me to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish.
Okay. Okay. So think about the people that influenced you the most, growing up. Think about whether it's coaches, parents, tell me a little bit about the people that influenced the way that you played, the way that you are, perhaps the way you think, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely starts and ends with my folks. They were the ones who drove everything. Jose even met my dad before. He was around when I was in the big leagues. He was around when I was a kid. My mom was, incredibly hard worker. She's very athletic. Then I had an older brother, younger sister, very, very tight family. And those were the places where I got a lot of my inspiration. I had little favorite baseball players. I would check their box scores in the paper every day, but nothing compared to the support I got from my family. If I felt like I was supported at home, there was nothing I felt like I couldn't do. Definitely had some good coaches growing up too, going from little league through, through high school. My high school coach, Glenn Martinez, was great. He has since passed, but he was a huge, inspiration for me, very supportive. And then my summer baseball coach, Ken Weldon, who was El Monte police chief, El Monte PD police chief, and he ran this program, the El Monte Dukes. And a lot of kids who were from the neighborhood, who were local, and we just loved to play, man. And he supported it. He was probably the most inspirational youth coach I had. And then, when I got into, and I had basically, one scholarship offer to UC Santa Barbara, jumped on it. And then at that point, I was kind of off and running. But I would say, yeah, my youth baseball coach, my high school baseball coach, and my folks were the three sort of areas that I really, really listened to. I trusted them the most. And they really, really provided me with this really cool pathway to do what I wanted to do.
All right. All right. Next thing. So your development, physical,
Yeah.
mental, skill wise, what were some of the things that you did on purpose, or some of the things that maybe they were by chance, what things were natural, what things weren't, tell me a little bit about those things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was always athletic. I was a good mover. I ran well. I could, I had good hand-eye coordination. I was an athletic kid. I was twitchy, but I was not strong. And working out and doing weight training and doing speed training was not a thing when I was a kid. Matter of fact, it was the opposite. Like, remember, that was back in the day when they said, you lift weights in baseball, you get too big and too stiff. It was almost frowned upon.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was very much a physical late bloomer. I probably graduated high school at around 155 pounds, probably about 5'10", 5'11". I grew another inch or two in college, left college. By the time I signed in college, I was about 170, 175. And I was also very young. Nowadays, it's a thing for, parents hold back kids because they want them, to be a little older, whether they want them to mature emotionally or physically, definitely a family call. But kids are older generally than they were. I graduated by the time I was a senior in high school. I was 16 and turned 17 my senior year.
Oh,
So
wow.
I got to college. I was 17 years old and I walked on a college campus. When I signed after my junior year in college, I was 20 years old. So I was very, very young for my age. Looking back, it was a very, very positive thing for me. It forced me to kind of up my game a little bit for the older kids I was playing against. But yeah, as far as my physical development, I didn't really start killing weight rooms until I got into pro ball. And by the time I got to the big leagues, all the stuff kind of started, my hand-eye coordination, my natural kind of like speed, my natural, like I said, the hand-eye, all the twitchiness, it kind of started to catch up with the fact that I was really starting to beat up a weight room at this point. But yeah, that didn't really click for me until my mid-20s. By the time when I was a young kid, it wasn't a thing for me at all.
Yeah. That one of the things that I'm trying to get parents to understand is the physical part. Because right now there's so much emphasis on playing ball and getting tested and measuring your fastball, measuring your bat speed. And, that's not going to play as well if you're not strong. And, every now and then I get a kid that is, he's 6 foot, 150, and then he goes, I want to go to this facility and get my fastball, get a better fastball, but they can't squat 200 pounds. And so, obviously in the old days, there wasn't much of that. But nowadays, one of the things that I encourage all parents is if you're going to do these things, you need to incorporate some sort of weight training, because otherwise it's going to be hard, especially nowadays in college. Those guys are monsters.
No doubt. You go play college ball. I mean, even high school ball. My son plays in the Trinity League in Southern California. It is, in my opinion, being around, seeing amateur sports now for a while, it's the best high school baseball league in the country. And these kids are beasts, all of them. There are kids in our league who are D1 committed who don't even start, and they're monsters. So, I mean, every kid, the word I use, because I think a lot of kids sometimes, if they don't have natural size, they always feel like they're at a disadvantage, right? And there are kids who are just gifted, right? They're tall, they're lean, they're fast, they're explosive. But the one word I always come back to is explosive. It doesn't matter if you're tall, if you're on the shorter side, if you have broad shoulders, if you have narrow shoulders, if you have, whatever your physical attributes are, you can be explosive. Corbin Carroll is about 5'8", 5'9", might be the most explosive player in the big leagues. Yeah. It's power, it's speed. In baseball, I think the one mistake people make is that they think that baseball is slow. The second the pitcher lets go of the ball, it is chaos. Yep. It's fast. So it requires explosive movement. And you have to be able to beat up a weight room. You have to work on your speed. And I think, like I said, the one word I stick to with whether they're an amateur player or a pro is being explosive.
Yeah. Well, let's hit on that word explosive, because that's another thing that I sometimes have to stop and explain a little bit. So if you're a kid out there, if you're a parent out there listening to this, so to become explosive, you got to have a level of strength. You cannot explode off the ground if you don't have some sort of strength. So to become explosive is a process. You got to combine traditional weight training, hit some heavy weights, but at some point you got to kind of slow that down and then add the explosive work, the plyometrics, because sometimes for those who do like to work out, the tendency is to do more weight. I squatted 300 pounds this year. I want to squat 400 pounds next year, and so on and so on. And what you're really doing is creating too much stiffness and too much, you're getting stiffer and you're becoming slower. So once you reach a level of strength that you feel like, all right, this is pretty good, you need to combine that with being explosive. Otherwise, you become a stiff mover, and that's not what you want. You want to express strength. You don't want to have strength for the sake of being the best in the weight room. So that's important to explain to everybody listening. Is being explosive is a combination of speed and strength, but you have to have the strength first.
Yes, totally agree.
Yeah,
totally agree. And it's important for, as a pro, you get to be really good at listening to your body. It's really hard to expect young kids to be able to have that skill. So it's important to have eyes and ears on these kids while they're doing their work. You've got to make sure that you're super dialed into what they're doing, so you can be the ones that can see if the work they're doing is being beneficial. I'll give you an example. I still, my favorite thing to do in a weight room is my pull-up, push-up, my pull-pull routine. Mm-hmm. So it can be like just one of three: pull-ups, push-ups, and jump squats. Those are my favorite workout still to do. And a couple of years ago, my New Year's resolution was I wanted to do 50 pull-ups a day. And I got to right around week or maybe day 10, and I noticed my golf swing sucked. It was tight. It wasn't good. I'm like, hey man, like I'm 45 years old. My goal here is to have a really, really good explosive golf swing. So right away I adjusted. I'm like, I'm not going to do this anymore. And it wasn't nothing to do with my stretching, nothing. It was just from my particular frame. It was too much. Mm-hmm. And I was stiff and I wasn't moving the way I wanted to move. So again, I, being at that point a former ball player, had the ability to kind of really be able to read my body and read what I was able to do and not do and make a quick adjustment. It's really hard to expect young kids to have that. So it's important for, parents and coaches to listen to this.
And that's an awesome point, because I get this question a lot. should baseball players bench press with the bar? Okay, and I remember what I would tell you guys. As long as you can throw and you feel good hitting, go for it. But as soon as you feel like your swing is slowing down or your arm is getting stiffer and you're not feeling good, then we got to change it. Right. It's never about the exercise. All exercises are good, but if you notice that your game is suffering, you got to stop and you got to change something, because at the end of the day, if you're a baseball player, you want to play baseball well. You want to move well. You want to hit well. You want to feel good on the field. You don't want to you don't want to be the guy that bench presses 300 pounds and throws 85. Right. So that's a good point, because anyone listening, if you're exercising and whatever kind of workout you're doing, if it slows you down or limits your lifestyle, it's time to change something. So that's just kind of a general statement.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And like you said, Jose, everything you said right there regarding benching with a bar, even to touch on that, you around me, I bench with a bar every off season. I would do it during the season. We wouldn't go as hard or as heavy during the season, but I would be again, because of conversations that you and I had, we knew my body, we knew what kind of work I like to do. I would be over 300 pounds with a bench going into every spring training, and I felt unbelievably good. But that was also when you would see me, we would go and, we would hit first and then we'd lift after. And I would know, like, as all these days start to stack up, I could see what my swing is doing. And I felt explosive as hell. So I'm like, I'm going to continue pushing bench and squat. It was important for me. Yeah. That really, really helped my game. I think that, it kept me healthy, killing a squat rack. You have to understand too that you want production, of course, but the only way to get production is to be on the field. My biggest thing with squats wasn't that I was squatting 400 pounds to hit more homers. It was that I truly believe to this day that squatting heavy and squatting safely kept me on the field. I only got hurt once in a 17 and a half year pro career, 14 in the big leagues. I missed 3 weeks with a hamstring one time. That was it. Yep. And I really believe that heavy squats helped me do it. But again, everyone's a little different, and you really have to pay attention to your body in order to make those calls.
Yeah. Well, you probably don't remember this, but one year we talked about, I want to prove to everybody that these guys can lift heavy all season and not lose much. And I remember I recorded all your squats and and Ian's and I think it was either Gary Matthews or Hank. I can't remember who it was, but you guys were squatting the same in September as you were in April, because we changed the reps. We backed off sometimes, but we kept the weight high, and you guys were like off by like 20 pounds. In a 6-month period, you guys maintained the same level of squat strength by just doing it on a regular basis, but also we modified it as the season went along, but your strength remained. And so I wanted to prove the point to myself. Obviously, I'm experimenting with you guys. I hate to say that, but I wanted to prove myself that, what, you can be a big league player, you can lift heavy, and you can stay healthy. And, there's nothing wrong with squatting heavy. And there are a lot of people who still don't like the back squat, which is fine. But I mean, I saw you guys succeed and still lift heavy. So that was always, I was very proud of that, because it was kind of like I proved my own theories. But I also think that you guys were also the right group of guys to do that too. Some guys are just not as tough as some of you guys were, so you guys were really dedicated to the weights, and man, you guys made my day every time you came out of there squatting over 300. So it always made me happy to watch you guys squat.
Yeah. I mean, again, I understand what people's opinions are on it, but I also think that the one thing you have to be really careful is making up an opinion after maybe 2 days of squats. Yeah. You go in there and squat 2 days, you're going to hate it. 100%, right? You're going to feel that there's a difference between, there were times where I would squat and I'd feel something in my knee and I would stop immediately. I'm like, all right, that didn't feel right. And it was minor. It was in the off season, minor. I would stop and I would go into my routine, which was squatting would be the next 3 days after that. And because I stopped right when I did it, I was able to, nothing was wrong. I was cool. I was able to hit it hard the next time. But there's also other things when you're doing squats, you're going to feel something a little awkward maybe, and you just got to kind of power through those things as long as you're doing it with good form. You got to power through those things. So if you're doing something like squats, there are going to be a couple of days of uncomfortability out of the chute, and you got to figure out a way to get through that.
Yeah, and there's a difference between joint pain and muscle pain. So when you
Okay.
feel the joint pain, you would stop.
Back up.
But
Yep.
if you're growing and your quads and all that were on fire, then that was the right move. So
Yep.
that's something to always be as an athlete when you're lifting. There's a difference. If you're feeling pain in your joint, stop. If you're feeling
Yep.
pain in your muscle, that's what it's supposed to do. So, but anyway, so another thing, this is kind of my favorite part is the mental toughness. I want to talk about your opinion on mental toughness. Kind of tell me a little bit about how you felt, how you describe that, but also, I mean, I have my opinion about you as as one of the toughest players I remember, but like describe maybe where you got that from. Is that something can be taught? Is that something natural? Speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think most guys who feel confidently in that area, you can kind of trace it back to your roots a little bit. My dad, again, was a construction worker, waking up super early in the morning, coming back with a stiff back every day, and never talked about it, never complained about it, but I observed it every single day. So at a very young age, I realized that if you're going to do something for a job or for work, you take it seriously. You give it everything you've got. And the last thing I wanted to do was to look back when my career was over or when the season ended and thought that I could have done more. That to me would be, I can deal with getting beat. I can deal with things not going my way. That's life, that's sports. But I wouldn't be able to deal with it if I left something out there. So I think that, real mental toughness isn't something that's outward. It's not something where, you're running your mouth on the field. That's fake. That's all fluff. It's how much you really believe in what you're doing and how much you can really show what you're about when things don't go your way. And baseball is the perfect sport to express that. There's going to be moments for every single player where it doesn't go their way because the sport's hard. You're going to be, whether you're, even if you're physically healthy, the sport at some point is going to beat you up.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to withstand that is to, take that as an opportunity. I've seen so many players, man, who have all the ability in the world and can't handle the failure of this game. They'll go 0 for 4 and they'll change their stance. They'll go 0 for 3 the next night and be like, no, now it's a new stance. And all the while they're just going through repeating this horrible cycle of thinking that you're going to get a quick fix or slap a Band-Aid over something that's really, really hard to do. Whereas I think the best players are ones that trust their work, understand the sport is hard, take failure as a bit of an opportunity to show what they're about and power through and push forward. Those are the ones who I really, really liked and respected playing with. And again, it was a process for me, just like it would be for anybody else. I remember my first couple of years in the big leagues, I was like that a little bit. Offensively, I was kind of really struggling to be consistent. And I remember going into year 3 and I had, like everyone says, I'm in the best shape of my life. But going into my 3rd year in the big leagues, I had a great offseason. I lifted harder than I'd ever lifted before. I hit more. I felt great defensively. And I went in, it's almost like when you study for a test,
Mm-hmm.
right? And, you're just waiting for the teacher to give you the exam. You're like, I'm ready. I'm going to kill this. And I felt the same way. Being mentally tough and being prepared they go hand in hand. And I felt like as long as I was prepared, I knew I didn't leave anything to chance. And I knew that I was ready for whatever was going to come my way. So I really do believe that, big time preparation and big time mental toughness there's a definite correlation there.
You know, if I remember correctly, you had a 300 batting average you finished at 300, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You were one of the most consistent hitters I observed in the 22 years I was in the big leagues. I know you probably felt different every day, but like to me, it always like you had the same approach, same type of mindset, same kind of drills. You kept it simple. I never saw you doing too much stuff. I think you always kept it the same. So give out some advice to high school hitters.
Yeah.
In your mind, what are some of the ways that you keep yourself consistent mentally, mechanically, approach, those kind of things? Like if I'm a high school player and I'm asking you, Michael, my swing is inconsistent. I'm an inconsistent hitter. How do I become consistent?
Yeah, that's such a good point, man. If I'm talking to a young player, and I got a 16-year-old right now who's, he plays on a really good team in a really tough league, and Starts as a sophomore, and we talk about the mental side of it all the time. We hit together. He hits with his coaches at school. He and I hit together. And I think the one thing I always tell him is that, listen, you hit every day and you know what your fundamental keys are of your swing. Your swing is not going to fall apart in a day, in a week, or in a month. You've got muscle memory ingrained in there now. You've been hitting for a long time. I said, so anything that you do is usually mental. So we talk about the mental game a lot. I remember, there's one game where he struck out on, I think the kid threw him like two splits, boom, boom, and a 2-1 count. He went boom, split, 2-2, boom, split, strike three. And after the game, we're like, all right, let's talk about that last at bat. What'd you feel? And he's like, yeah, he threw me a couple good pitches. I'm like, well, what pitches did he have? He's like, I thought it was just fastball, curveball. He's like, then he dropped a split on me, and I wasn't really ready for that. I said, well, I was watching you when you were in the on deck circle because they brought in that pitcher to face him. I was like, and he flashed three pitches. He went boom, heater, boom, curveball, boom, split. He showed you all of them in the normal pitches, and then all of his splits bounced on the plate. I was like, I looked at you, and you're putting your batting gloves on. I was like, you have to be locked in on everything that you're doing out there. I was like, again, the best hitters are the most proactive ones. They're the ones who are formulating a good plan before they even get up there. So the one thing I would tell amateur hitters, high school hitters, is that the best way to be a really, really good hitter is to be ready when you get up there and having a really, really good plan. And if you do that, you're going to put yourself in a really good position to get in some good counts and to get better pitches to hit. Again, off the field, you're going to lift. You're going to do everything you can to improve yourself as an explosive athlete. But on the baseball field is what is the ultimate separator. The ones who are the most mentally tough, the ones who are the most prepared, they're the ones who are going to have the most success. And like anything else, if you talk to any professional coach, whether it's any sport, it can be baseball, basketball, football, hockey, they're going to say they want players who are, yes, very competitive, tough, and high IQ, intelligent players. And those are the ones who are always looking to feel for edges. They're never shutting down mentally. They're the ones who are constantly looking to see the little spots in the field where they can improve. Not to give you a super long answer, but one place I even talked to our minor leaguers about is, let's say you make the third out of an inning, ground out, you give your helmet to the first base coach, and you go play defense, and you come, you get 3 outs, you come back in. There are so many players that shut down mentally right there because they know odds are they're not going to hit that inning. They're they're cheering for their teammates. High school, you cheer nonstop. My goodness, they don't shut up. But they're into the game, but they're not really into the game. They shut down mentally for that inning because they think they're off. Use that inning where you're probably not going to hit to find something. Maybe the catcher is getting wider on a breaking ball. Maybe the shortstop and the second baseman are moving a little bit when they see breaking ball. Look for the pitcher. Maybe he's doing something, his delivery, that's going to give you a tip. That's your one inning to find something out there that's going to help you succeed during the game. So that's another thing. The most proactive guys, the most intelligent, competitive guys, they're going to find edges that other guys don't. And they're going to will themselves to have some success.
Yeah. So I want to summarize a little bit of that just to highlight some of the things you said. So as a hitter, you got to be proactive. So perhaps your at bat starts in the dugout even before you get on deck. So you got to be thinking ahead. On deck, you got to watch what the pitcher's doing. See what pitches he's warming up with. See what he's got. See if he's throwing those pitches for strikes. If he throws a curveball and he's not getting it for strikes, so then you probably not going to get one. But just to be aware of what he's throwing, especially on deck. Be focused on deck. Have a plan at the plate. Have an idea what you want to do. And then when you go back out on defense after you made an out, spend the rest of the time before your last at bat and your next at bat to try to figure something out. See if you can pick out something from the pitcher, pick out something that you could do, or think about what you did as opposed to just shutting down because you're not doing anything. So for the kids and dads, listening out there, these are things that are hardly ever talked about in practice. Most coaches don't have time to do that. So these in between things are so crucial for the success of a hitter. These guys don't hit because they can see ball, hit ball. These guys hit well because they do a bunch of little things before they even swing the bat. So just take note of that stuff because this kind of wisdom is not easily talked about anywhere you go. Everybody's doing drills and strapping on rubber bands and doing things like that. This is where it's at. Is that these little things, paying attention in the moment, those are the things that get you over you know, over the slumps, over that bad at bat or whatever. So it's these little things that actually get you better. Let's talk about your health. You always, I think you went on, like you said, you went on the DL once.
Yeah, actually got lucky because it was I yanked my hamstring on September 1st, so rosters expanded, so they actually didn't go on the DL. I got lucky there, but yeah, that's the only time I ever missed time.
Right. So tell me a little bit about how you did it. You know, what were some things that you did to have really, really good awareness? And one of the things that I talk about is how, when you get on the line and when you go through your day, there has to be a point in your day where you take inventory of your body so you know what you got for that game. So, you know, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, yeah, good. So I do think that the two things that I did a lot during my career that really helped me stay healthy, and again, like the one thing that you're always going to be on guard of as an athlete is like your lower body, making sure that there's no, you know, soft tissue, lower body things that are going on. Those are things that can really, really zap you during the course of the season. So the two things I think I did every offseason that really, really helped keep my legs strong, get me through, especially playing in Texas when we didn't have a roof at the time and it was blazing hot and you're battling potential dehydration pretty much every game. Was I ran a lot of sprints in the off season and I did a lot of weight work. So the first thing I would do in my off season routine, I'd wake up at 6 and I'd go straight to the track. I'd have something tiny to eat, water, and go straight to the track. And I would do all my sprint work would be done there. And then once I finished there, I'd come home, have breakfast, and then I would go to the ballpark at that point, meet up with you, and we would hit and play catch. And then the last thing I would do at that point would be to do my weight work after that. But that sprint work that I did, you know, I like to think that for my whole career, you know, if I hit a ground ball, I was doing what I could to get down the line with, you know, proper hustle and just things that baseball players should do to play hard. So that's a lot of sprints going from, you know, 4 seconds spent, going as hard as you can. And I really do think that all the sprints I did over the course of an off season kind of got my body woken up to that. And there was never a shock the body moment when I was running hard during the game. Then you combine that with a lot of, you know, lower body weight work. And I felt like physically I was able to withstand, you know, the punishment of 162, including spring training in the postseason too. So that's where it kind of all started and ended for me was doing those two things.
Okay. Let's kind of shift a little bit about Michael Young, the dad. Tell me about your relationship. You got 3 boys. I've met them all. Just good looking kids. They all do different things. You know, tell me a little about your relationship with them and their sports and their activities, and you know, how do you manage that? How do you, you know, tell me a little bit about your relationship with them, and because they're all do different things and they're all different kids, and so how do you manage that?
Yeah, so to start with, I mean, when they were super young, I gotta give Christina, my wife, all the credit in the world. You know, I was playing ball, and you know, she's home. I'm in, I'm out. You know, there was never a point where there was an empty suitcase in my house. There was always a half full suitcase in my bedroom at all times when I was playing. Jose, you know the feeling there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were really focused on making sure that our boys didn't revolve around my career. So they had bedtimes, man. People talk about their kids being in the clubhouse all the time. My kids were never in the clubhouse. They were in bed by, you know, 8:30 at night, trying to get on with what kids should be doing. But like you said, they're all different. My oldest son is 20 years old. He's a college sophomore. He was a high school swimmer. Doesn't do that anymore. Then I have a 16-year-old sophomore who plays ball. Then I have a 13-year-old plays baseball, plays basketball. So they're all very, very different, both athletically, both personality-wise, what they like, what they don't like. They're very, very different dudes. But the one thing that is very, very stable is their home life, their family life, and what they're going to get from me and Christina here at the house.
Yeah, that's one thing I always observed from you guys is you guys just like you were like textbook on like how to be a pro even off the field. Like the kids did certain things. You had schedules. You had about as normal a life as you can have for a big league life. You know, like it seemed like your kids were always doing normal things, even though you guys were always stuck away from home. So, tell me a little bit about your relationship with Michael, right? The baseball 16-year-old.
Emilio. Yeah.
So does he listen? What things he do on purpose? Yeah, you know, like how's your relationship there?
Yeah, so the interesting part is we live in Newport Beach, California now. We moved back out here my wife and I are both from Southern California. moved out here 2 years ago. But being in Texas, it was hard on him. It was, I noticed it when he was young. There was a bit of a target on his back, being my son. And I remember I used to think that really kind of felt that was a little unfair to him. Didn't get an opportunity to develop like a normal kid. I remember, there would be times where he would have a tough game I'm talking about when he's super, super young, 9, 10, 11 years old. And, we had at that point when he was super young, I tried to make sure I was very aware of where he was at with his love of baseball. And we had this rule that, we wouldn't talk ball on the way home. We would, we go to Whataburger or Chick-fil-A on the way home, man. That's what we wanted to do. I wanted to kill baseball at that point, let him relax, let him recover, and hopefully at some point he would come to me. But I remember there were a couple times when he'd have a tough game or even a good game or whatever, and we just want to kind of get in the car and go home and be father and son. And there would be parents coming up to me asking me to take pictures with their kids. I understand. I always did it. I always want to be respectful, and I understand that parents always want to do nice things for their kids. Totally understand it. But I remember a couple of times my kid would have a tough game, and we'd be walking to the car, and I'd get stopped. And once you know how it goes, Rosie, once you stop for one,
they all come.
They all come, right? They're all looking. They're all giving you the side eye to see if they'll stop. Once you stop, here they come. And like I remember one time I kind of taking a couple of pictures, and I looked down at my boy, and he was kind of like, first time I saw a look on his face, like, hey man, I'm like, I don't like you guys taking my time away right now from me and my dad. And he was probably like 10 or 11. He was young. And that was the first time it hit me. And I remember I told everybody, I'm like, sorry, I'm leaving. And I know that a couple of parents like voiced their displeasure with me, like, oh, you signed for them, but not for me. And I said, hey guys, I'm sorry. This is my dad time right now. And I'm sorry. I don't mean to offend anybody here, but I don't have any time for this right now. I want to spend time with him. And I don't want him to think that he is my son, me, the baseball player's kid, because that's exactly where he's at right now. And I don't like that for him. So once he got a little older, kind of got used to it. He had to kind of absorb a couple of things. And then once he kind of got used to it, everything was cool. And he started to adjust off of it. And especially once we came out here, and it's not as big a deal for, being in Southern California, there's a lot of really, really good players. And him being my son isn't as big a deal as it'd be in Texas for obvious reasons. He's 16, he drives himself. He's old enough now where he's able to kind of compartmentalize that a little bit more. But there was definitely an adjustment there when he was younger.
I bet that. Yeah, no, that's real. I mean, people are relentless. They don't care. They don't care that it's father-son time. And they just want something. But I mean, I saw that all the time. And obviously some guys are less gracious than you. You're always pretty gracious for all that stuff. But yeah, that's a good moment. That's and that's what I want to point out to all the dads is some of the things you said. You had an agreement. You're not going to talk on the way home. Some dads do. My son, he likes to talk, so he'll bring it up. He'll bring it up. But I also give him permission. Hey, if you don't want to talk, just let me know. I'll shut up. But most of the time, I just let him talk. And there have been times where we're walking to the car and I'm not saying anything, and he's like, "Dad, what you thought? What'd you think? What?" And so I'm like, "Oh, okay. I think this." But for all dads out there, find your place. After the game, the next day, 2 days later, wait it out, whatever. But it's important to let the young kids process the game, whatever they struggled with that day. Let them stew on it a little bit, and when they want to talk, they talk, and so that's important to walk away.
One thing,
with.
Jose, that I would say regarding that is, like you said, a really good point is that every family rule or family way is different, right? What we work for me and my boy and my sons might be a little different from somebody else, which is great. The one thing that I try to always remind myself of, and I think it's important for all dads to do, is that I know the game well, just being around it for so long. And baseball is one of those games where even if my son technically has a good game, I can see maybe his lead, how he's getting ready on defense, and I can point out 5 or 6 things he did wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Just because baseball is such a complex game. And the one thing that I had to really battle with myself was anytime that he and I were talking about the game was trying to point out every single thing. Because damn, man, that makes for a long stretch of talking to him about things that he wasn't doing well. Right? It's I think the dad's thing is you want to help your son so much where you're just getting everything out. And maybe you're getting everything out feels good to you, but imagine being that age and hearing all of these things. It's hard enough to try and fix one thing, let alone trying to get like 5 or 6 things that you saw, but your lead wasn't good, or you're a pitcher, man, you keep getting behind in the count. There's so many things. Like, so the one thing I always told myself was that when every time we're going to talk baseball, we're going to start with the positives. Even if he has a tough game, hey man, what are some of the things that went right out there? And damn, like anybody else, there might be a tough time finding positive things in some of these games, but it's important to make sure that you don't feel like your kid is drinking out of a fire hose because you're just firing things at them left and right because you want to just get them out.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get like that sometimes where I feel like I have a lot to say, and and he'll sit there and listen and be respectful, and it's like, tell me when to stop because I'm ready to stop. Just at least acknowledge that you heard something so I can stop because I feel like I'm just blasting you with information. And so,
Right.
yeah, it's important for dads to catch yourself because, I mean, every father wants their son to be better than them. I mean, I think if you love your kid, you want your kids to be better than you in whatever. So sometimes we feel like we don't have enough time to get this information out, to get these feelings out, and we just kind of like blast them with stuff, and it's overwhelming because a lot of times what you're saying, they're probably thinking something else. You're talking footwork. He's probably, I just missed my pitch, or sometimes we're in different parts of the county here with our thoughts, and so
Yeah.
so let's talk about a little bit about the things that you guys do on purpose. The work that you do with him. What kind of workouts? What kind of hitting? How do you coach him? What things you just let go, or what things you just stay on. So for the dads out there, hey, how do you work with your kid?
Yeah, so to start with, like the physical stuff, right? The workouts. He has his team. They work out together 4 days a week. So he does that at high school. They have 2 strength coaches every time they work out there, and I trust them. We have a gym here at the house. He'll work out there. He knows what to do. I don't have to watch him all the time. The one thing I do tell him all the time is making sure that he doesn't to almost take your phone out of there. It is so easy to get distracted between sets by just going back to your phone, going back to your phone, going back to your phone. Stay focused on what your work is. You have plenty of time to get back in touch with friends or to scroll or do whatever the hell you want to do. Stay focused on your work in that moment. And then those are the 2 biggest things physically. Then over the summers and the fall, when it kind of starts to back up a little bit, he does go to a facility out here that's really, really good for him. So he's covered from a physical standpoint. We take a ton of ground balls. We take and we hit. And the biggest thing I try to do especially when we're hitting, is even if I'm throwing to him, I don't talk too much when he's hitting. One, he's 16 and he kind of knows what adjustments to make now. So if he hits like 2 snap hook ground balls, I'm not going to say a word because I know the next ball is going to come whistling towards, he's a left-handed hitter. It's going to come whistling towards center to left center because he knows now to get through the ball a little bit. He knows adjustments to make. So a lot of times it's just small things that I'm seeing in him, because I do think the one thing that kids require at that age are to make sure there's an extra set of eyes that make sure the mechanics are being really consistent. That means one day where I'm like, hey, listen, your stance is a little more open today than it usually is. Is this what you want to do? He'll be like, no. I'm like, just letting you know. If you want to work through that or try something, cool. If you want to experiment, great. But that's just where you're at right now. Or your hands are pushed out a little bit more off your face a little bit, where usually you kind of got them right locked in by your ear. Or your head isn't as turned towards me as much as it usually is. Small things like that. A lot of times I just give them things to kind of chew on. All the while, though, I do believe that if you look around the major leagues now, one thing that we've really started to do with him that I really believe in is we've really tried to minimize his moves. It's extreme velocity, it's extreme spin. So you need to make sure that you're in a great position to get pitch recognition and to fire if you get something that you're really going to like. So I don't believe in like having a ton of movement and a ton of like, if you look at hitters nowadays, the really, really good ones, they have really done a good job of calming down their moves. So he used to kind of have like this kind of like, his bat would kind of do this. And now it basically just kind of stays here. He gets a small gather and he just goes. Being around a lot of the guys from Team USA during the WBC, one thing you heard him talk about was 1-2, 1-2. It's whatever your move is, go. Whatever your move is, and go right to the ball. So that's one thing that we kind of talked about is what is his, we know the 2 is going to be his fire move to the ball.
Yeah.
What is your 1? What is that going to look like?
Yeah.
So we've done a really good job of that, of making sure that we keep it super foundational, but it's also rhythmic and doesn't
Yeah.
feel robotic.
Yeah. 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 I call that the wiggle. A lot of kids
Yeah.
today, they get their, and they wiggle so much that they wiggle through their swing path, and now the bat is doing this through the zone, or they're wiggling so much the head is moving, and so now you lost track. So, yeah. You said one thing that I want to point out for all the dads, and this is something that I see in a lot of hitting coaches in the facilities, and when you're throwing BP and you're watching them swing, you don't talk. Perhaps you do maybe 10 reps, maybe you debrief what you feel there, ask a couple questions, but I see this often where coaches coach every swing. They have to make a comment on every swing. And I mean, I've read research on how to acquire skill, how to retain information and stuff like that. And when you coach every swing or every rep, there's no retention. When you give instructions, demonstrate, let them do it. At the end of the round, you debrief. The player has had time to kind of process the idea, process the swing, process whatever, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I felt this. Okay, well then let's try this move." And so that's very very important for all dads and coaches out there. You don't have to coach every rep. At least give them 10 reps before you say something. I mean, just try to have the courage to stay quiet just for a little bit. Let the kid figure something out before you coach the next thing.
I really believe in that, Jose. Like like you said, that last point right there, you got to give them the space to figure it out. I remember one time I was listening to Phil Jackson talk about basketball, and he said that, one thing he does different than a lot of coaches is that if this team goes south, their sets go bad, they're playing bad defense, they're not getting good offensive execution. He goes, I don't like to call timeouts. They've got to be able to think on their feet and figure it out in real time. Mm-hmm. That's not what life is all the time. Where you go, timeout, timeout, timeout. He goes, I believe in letting them go in real time to troubleshoot. And I've said that to my son, like, troubleshoot's a big word. Hey, listen, what are you going to do when things are happening in real time and you've got to make a quick adjustment? You have to think on your feet. So I keep throwing to him, and I see him gradually working himself through things. And there are times too, man, where he does take, a few swings in a row that I know he doesn't like. And I'll say, hey, man, grab some water. And that's like our 30, 60-second chill, right? Calm down, get some water. Think about now what you want to do with the next 30 swings you're going to take. Mm-hmm. And that's all I say. Whenever he tells me, hey, grab some water, he knows that I'm saying for him to go through some things. And then there are times, again, like when he says, what are you seeing out there?
Yeah.
What do you see? And then with Tozy, we've had times too, man. Like, usually our sessions, if it's, say, 3 buckets worth and I got about 35, 40 balls in my bucket, that's shit, man. It's like 105, 120 swings, I think, somewhere around that area. And there are times I said to Emilio, I was like, you might have 30 good swings today, and you took some bad ones. Take those 30 and stack them onto the next day. Tomorrow you might come and take 90 good ones, and we're going to stack those 120 and keep stacking them and stacking them. If you take 10 good swings today, it's 10 better than some other guys did. We're going to take those 10 all the time. So don't worry about these bad swings all the time. You learn from them, you process them, and you push forward, and you take the good swings and you stack them with other good swings. And that's how you become a better hitter. So again, a lot of it's just for me, it's that's just positive reinforcement that I think is important for any hitter. The ones who are really successful are ultra confident.
Yeah.
There's nothing they believe they can't accomplish up there. So the more times you can reinforce something like that to a young kid, it's super important.
Yeah. So kind of wrapping this up in the next few minutes, what is a couple things perhaps that you would advise all dads that are working with their boys or moms, working with their boys? They're going through it. They're going through high school. What kind of things should they focus on, and just what kind of general advice, from a former major leaguer to a dad, what kind of advice would you give parents for their kids?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is if they really love it, encourage them. Put your arm around them. I think a lot of times, and as they get older, especially, first of all, if they're super, super young, just encourage the fact that they love to play. And if they really don't love it, that's okay too. Don't try and make them love it. That can make things kind of backfire in a heartbeat. If they don't really love the actual game, encourage the parts they can love, being a good teammate, They can be in a team environment. Those are things that can really help develop the love of the game as they go on. To try and force feed it to them is a really, really, tough way to kind of get that done. As they get older, I think when they have, tough games, you put your arm around them. They're going to start figuring stuff out for themselves. And I think the biggest thing too is as you navigate this travel ball scene, and every parent, they probably want the same things. They want their kids to go to Division I schools. They want them to kind of like be seen. You got to let that happen organically, man, because it is a really, really tough environment out there for kids to develop. The more you kind of put into this thing, the more pressure they're going to feel. So I think the biggest thing to do is kind of be a parent first and foremost. Don't be a baseball parent. Be a parent. Value your family time. Make sure you can kind of get away. Make sure that you can, understand that the kid knows that you're just their parent, not their baseball parent. And that's one thing that I really, really try to do with my boys, especially as they kind of get active into doing stuff that they want to do. Same stuff that I learned from my folks, encourage them to work hard. At no point in life, whatever you decide to do, hard work is not a negotiable. You got to work hard to be successful. Work hard, pour everything you got into it, and respect the people around you, and you should be fine. No matter if the baseball thing works out or not, you're going to be able to take all these lessons with you to whatever path you decide to go in your life.
Yeah, awesome. So I want to close with 2 Michael Young stories that you probably don't remember, but these are things that I always, they're just like, for me, they're like fairy tales type of tales tales of baseball that I tell people. So there was one season you were struggling a little bit for a couple of weeks. You didn't struggle very long, but it was a couple of weeks, and you haven't been coming in the weight room. And JD asked me to come to you and say, hey, check on Michael. He doesn't look good. Is he working out? And so I was like, yeah, I'll talk to him. And I go to you and I go, Michael, I noticed you haven't been in the weight room the last few days. The people are a little concerned about your hitting. And you said, yeah, you're right. I'll be in there tomorrow. But as far as my hitting, bro, I'm going to hit 300 at the end of the year. I was like, all right, boom. I fist bumped you and I left. You hit 300 that year. that was your answer. That was classic Michael. So I don't know if you remember that conversation.
I do, Jose. To be honest with you, man, that was important for me too, because it was a good learning moment for me too. I remember that. And I remember I told you, I'm like, hey, listen, like I've been kind of scuffling. So I've been spending a lot of my free time, like it's been in the cage. I haven't been in the weight room as much. So I've been in the cage more. And I remember kind of coming back home after I talked to you about it. I'm driving home and I'm thinking about what you told me. I said, maybe I think Jose's right. Like I shouldn't just abandon everything that I've done that I know gives me a really, really good foundation just for a quick little cage session. Let's make sure I stay consistent in my weight room work. Keep strong the foundational things that got me here in the first place, and don't just abandon them off of a week or two tough stretch at the plate. If I stay consistent with my work, that's going to help me bounce out of this and get back to hitting the way I want to. So yeah, I remember that conversation. It was actually, I made a good adjustment off it based on what you told me. Again, the best coaches are the ones that want to coach you and they're honest with you. So again, once you said it to me, I felt like next day I got in the weight room and kind of got this kind of.
Yeah, you got back. Yeah, you got back into the routine. Yeah. And I use that story a lot to point out the number one, the confidence that you had in yourself, even though you were scuffling, but you knew you were going to hit 300. That was you. But also you recognized that you weren't doing your normal routine and you needed to get back to it. And that's a very important thing for all players to think about is everyone's going to struggle, but don't abandon the things that are routine. The workouts, don't blame the workout. Keep doing the workout. Maybe spend extra time in the cage and figure things out, but the workout is not the problem. It's usually something else. So don't abandon your routine for a few bad games or a little slump. So the other thing I always tell about you is your consistency, the way you prepared every day. I remember you would walk through the weight room, and I remember the first time I noticed you, it was like you went to the weight room. I'm sorry, you were going to the cage. So you used to have to walk through the weight room to go to the cage. And I turned around 5 minutes later, you're walking back in. And I said, "You're done?" He goes, "That's it, man. All I need is 10 swings." I don't know what you said, but it was so quick. And it just made me think, when you're confident and you have your routine, you do your routine and you get out. You know,
Yeah.
if it's 10 minutes, it's 10 minutes. If it's 30 minutes, it's 30 minutes. And I remember that, and I'm like, wow, you know, that's pretty cool, because I see most of the rest of the guys an hour here, 30 minutes there, you know, 2 hours here. You know, like the good ones do the same things. They believe in themselves, and they just keep it short, keep it crisp, quality, in and out, boom. And I remember that it's like, it's my routine, bro. Ooh, you walked out.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, perfect.
I think a lot of it, Jose, is like whatever you need on that given day, man. Like there were times during the season where I knew my plan going into the cage was, all right, if I backspin 10 balls to the back part of the net and I feel like my body is loose and ready, let's go. Like my goal that day isn't to kill it in the cage, it's to kill it in the game. And there's a big difference between cage hitting and game hitting. That's another lesson I would tell to like dads and kids. Just because you kill in the cage doesn't mean like mentally are you fired enough to kill it in the game. Those are two completely different things. So if I go in there and be like, you know, take a couple of good warm-ups and then boom, 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 let's go. I'm ready for 7:05. There's no point, there's no need for me to be in here any longer. I'm ready to go perform. And that's what the ultimate goal was. Then there'd be days in spring training where I would say, hey man, I want to sweat today. I want to kind of get I want my hitting to be a bit of a workout. Yeah. So I would, you know, when I clubhouse kids and say, all right, we're going to hit breaking ball, saying I'm going to hit for a while. I want to hit and I want to push myself a little bit. I want to get to a place of fatigue and then challenge myself mentally to hold my mechanics, even though I'm physically tired.
Yeah.
Right. And that's usually stuff I would do during spring training. I wouldn't do that as much during the season, but yeah, there's different goals for every single day. I think that's a big thing. Like I knew going into that particular cage session what my goal was. I didn't just walk in there and just say, well, screw it, I'm just going to hit and then get out of here whenever. I knew exactly what I wanted to do it, get out.
Yeah, yeah, and great message to the parents and the kids. Whatever your goal is for that day, like you said, I go in, backspin 10 balls, okay, I'm done. A lot of times, some kids, they backspin 10 balls and they're like, I want to see if I can do 20. I want to see if I can do 30. Next thing you know, you're rolling over and your 10 good ones are now out the window because now you're rolling over. Or, you know, today I'm going to sweat. I'm going to hit a lot. And so don't judge your BP by the number of swings. Judge your BP by, did you accomplish what you set out to do? I'm going to backspin balls to the opposite field. Today I'm just going to work out, man. I'm just going to sweat and get some endurance out of this and so on. So when you have a goal, it makes batting practice quality. And that's what kids need to know today is, everything's about quality. If it's 10 swings, it's 10 swings. If it's 50 swings, it's 50 swings. Just quality is what sticks in your brain, not the number of reps. It's the quality of work that sticks in your brain. So that's what all kids need to know.
100%.
Yeah. One last one. So every day you went out and sat in the dugout at the same time. I can't remember if it was 6:37 or 6:40 something, but it was the same time. Every single day you sat in the dugout for 2 minutes, you would close your eyes, kind of do a little meditation or just visualization or whatever, run out to the field and did the same drills every single day. Am I right on that one?
100%. I would, 100%, dude. I would get out to the dugout around 6:30 and just sit by myself. You know, I wasn't one of those sticklers. If there was someone in there, I wouldn't be like, don't talk to me. You know, I would have a chat if someone was in there. But at 37, I was gone out the gate to go run. I did the same stretches. I did the same amount of sprints. I did everything the same every single day. And again, that's a place of my place of calm to get ready for the game. And I also knew that once I did all those things, I was physically ready to go play. Again, like, you know, high level competition, again, requires high level preparation. And I wanted to make sure that when the game started, I was ready to rock. I was physically there. Nothing was going to hold me back. Now, granted, there were days where you would know I would be banged up with something, right? And you and I would come up with a little plan like, hey, are we got to work around this groin or hamstring, whatever today? I got a little something going on. We got to think of something different. Maybe I wouldn't run 6 sprints before the game. Maybe I run 2 and be like, hey, this is all I got today. But generally speaking, it was the same routine every day. I'd leave the dugout at the same time, do the same work, do the same sprint work, the same stretches, and usually for the same amount of time every single time. No, you got me pegged, dude.
Yeah. Well, hey, one of my favorite thing about being in the big leagues is just watching you guys work. You know, I tell a lot of people, one of the reasons I got into the job that as a strength coach is I wanted to know what makes a great player. And from my very first year to my very last year, I just watched and asked questions and listened and just I just wanted to know what make people great, what make players great. And so there were so many little things that you guys did that I was like, that's it, or that's not it. And so it just and I kind of came up with my own definition of what it is, and that I admired about people and admired about you is just, it's not about being a great ball player, because there's a lot of great ball players that are just not very nice people. It is what it is. But there's a lot of good ball players that were professional, that handled their business, treated people with respect, carried themselves with pride. They had pride in their work. They loved their families. They were good men in the community. They were well-rounded. And the guys that I've seen after the game that are very happy are the ones that really had a well-rounded family life. They were well-rounded guys, and to be in general, you know, they weren't the guys that were all over the place, all, you know, changing things all the time and doing all kinds of crazy things off the field. It was always the guys that had like that sense of balance that just kept it all together. And, you know, just talking to you, I know that you're having a great time with your family, enjoying the fruits of your labor, and it's just great to see guys like you, Adrian, Ian, how well you guys are doing after the game, because you guys did it right, and so now you're just reaping the benefits of all that hard work. So I mean, it's just awesome. It's awesome to still talk to you and still stay in touch. And man, I appreciate your time. For everybody listening, I hope you got something out of this. If you want to get the video, Eclipse Pain Network on YouTube, or follow me on Facebook, Baseball Strong Facebook. Hey, this is Jose Vasquez for Baseball Strong. I want to thank my friend Michael Young. Take care. Thank you, brother. We good?
Oh, thanks, bro.
Yeah, we had to have the credits.